Welcome back to the Fantasy Baseball Advice Show with Alec Pecano. On today's show, I'm going to go over my pitchers to stream, and there's a lot of them to stream this weekend, as well as some bold predictions, and I will talk about Paul Skenes' Major League debut. You'll hear me say his name probably 2 or 3 times in the stream today, and much more. Let's get right into it. Here's my first batch of pitchers to stream this weekend, starting with Royals pitcher Seth Lugo, who starts on Sunday at the Angels. The Angels are one of the, I'm not going to say worst, but they're one of the more bottom feeder teams in baseball. And I love Seth Lugo going against the Angels on Sunday. And if he's available on your waiver wire, which he probably should, he should be. I wouldn't say widely available, but he's available in a decent number of fantasy baseball leagues. The second guy is Red starting pitcher Frankie Montas. Frankie Montas starts on Sunday at the Giants. Now, with Montas, it's not the same thing. It's like the Giants do have a good offense. If you didn't, I know they only put up 1 run yesterday against the Rockies, but I do feel confident enough in streaming Frankie Montas this weekend against the Giants on Sunday. The next one is a guy that's pitching tonight for the Tigers, Casey Mize. He is pitching tonight for the Tigers against the Astros at home. Now, I'm going to take this one, and I'm going to explain a little bit on it. I would say if Casey Mize is available in your league, I would add him at your own risk. And if you don't have any better options for starting pitching, then I would think about putting him in your starting pitcher spot for tonight. And also another guy that is pitching tonight is Jameson Taillon of the Cubs. I would feel, and he's pitching at the Pirates tonight. And you'll hear me talk about the Pirates again in a few minutes with more pitchers to stream, because I've got 3 more pitchers that you'll hear about later on in the show that I think are good streaming options. But back to Taillon. Taillon's not going to get you strikeouts necessarily, but he'll get you in it. If you get points for innings pitched in your league, I would highly advise to add Jameson Taillon. And also add, yes, Taillon is the last guy in this batch of streaming pitchers. But I would add Jameson Taillon if you need starting pitching help. And now I'm going to give you some hitters to stream this weekend for fantasy baseball. It's a 4-part, it's 4 guys. First one, Reds outfielder TJ Friedl. He is 30%. I'm gonna say 31% rostered. I could be off a little bit, but they've got 3 games. He's got 3 games at the San Francisco Giants this weekend. If you need, he will be batting leadoff and playing center field. If you need outfield help, because we know how outfield's been this year, it has not been particularly, it hasn't particularly been that good in fantasy baseball. There hasn't been a lot of productive outfielders. But I feel like TJ Friedl, if you need stolen bases, batting average, and a lot more, I feel like TJ Friedel could be a perfect streaming option for this weekend for you. Number 2, Wilyer Abreu with the Red Sox. Just under 20% rostered. He's got 3 versus the Nationals this week. And it seems like he is playing, I'm not going to say every single day, but he's playing on a more regular basis. And for a little bit of a time there, he had a 6 or 7 RBI game streak. I don't know if that's still going on, but regardless of that, I still would add Wilyer Abreu and stream him this week. Number 3 is Blue Jays catcher. If you need catcher, because catcher's another one. We just lost Wilson Contreras a few days ago to injury. And I know Wilson Contreras was rostered in a bunch of leagues. Here's a catcher that I think needs to be streamed this weekend and maybe add in more leagues. Blue Jays catcher Danny Jansen. He's got 3 games at home against the Twins. He's got 3 at home against the Twins this week, and he is widely available. Only 6.7% rostered. And then the last one is Athletics outfielder JJ Bleday. He is only, I think I saw where he's only 9% rostered, I believe. It might be less than that, but he's got 3 games this weekend at the Mariners. I got burned by Bleday earlier in his season. I'm willing to get burned by him again. Stream him at your own risk. That's all I'm going to say about JJ Bleday. Now we chug out along in the show, and we talk about waiver wire pitchers to add for this weekend. And I've got 3 of them. The first one is Reed Garrett of the Mets. Let me just make sure my ears are good. First one is Reed Garrett of the Mets. He's not going to get you saves. He will get you strikeouts. And if you play in a categories league, you need strikeouts, you need innings, and you need whip and ERA. He'll get you that too. He has very low ERA and whip. I would feel more than confident in adding Reed Garrett. The next 2 guys are closers. The first one is Hector Neris of the Cubs. It seems like at the moment, Hector Neris is the closer of the Cubs. At the time of recording this, he is their closer right now. He has gotten the last 3 save opportunities the Cubs have had in their last 3 games. And he's 3 for 3 in those last 3 games in saves. He is 16% rostered, 16.6. That is Hector Neris of the Cubs. He is their closer right now. And then the last one is Kirby Yates, closer. At the moment, he is the linchpin at the end of the bullpen for the Rangers, 44.5% rostered. If you need help with saves, pick up Kirby Yates, and you can thank me later and clip it in a video and clip this section of this segment, this part of the video. And before I get to the streamers, the other 3 guys to stream, I've got some waiver wire hitters under 80% rostered. We are going to start with Twins outfielder Max Kepler. Max Kepler has been mashing over the last week. 11-game hitting streak. Kepler needs to be rostered in a lot more leagues. He's only, from what I can see on my board here, he's only 20% rostered. I don't understand how many more games he has to go with getting at least one hit before he's rostered in over 40% of leagues. If that doesn't convince you, he's got an 11-game hitting streak going right now. Does Max Kepler. And I think that speaks for itself. I think Max Kepler should be rostered in more leagues. Number 2 is first baseman for the Guardians. He just got called up prospect. First base prospect, Kyle Manzardo, 7.7% rostered. I know his first couple games in the big leagues were not so good, but it seems like he's figured a couple of things out since then, and he's had at least a hit. His last 2 games, he's had at least one hit. And I think if you need first base help, because you've got Vladdy, who's, I'm going to say, still kind of struggling, or you've got CES, Cardassian Strand, who's on the IL right now with an injury, I would consider adding Kyle Manzardo. And if you want to platoon him with another first baseman on your roster, maybe you got Spencer Torkelson, and you could play the matchups there. If one of them's facing a better pitcher, you could play that one, and you could put the other guy on the bench. But I would consider adding Kyle Manzardo to your lineup because I think he's about to have a huge rest of the season for the Guardians. Next, we've got Mariners second baseman / third baseman Josh Rojas. And it seems like he's settled in as the linchpin at the hot corner at third base for Seattle. He is less than 9% rostered. He's 8.4% rostered. And in a categories league, he'll get you hits. He'll get you batting average. He'll get you on base percentage and slugging. I don't know if he'll get you stolen bases. He may throw in maybe 2 or 3 stolen bases during the season, but don't count on him to get you stolen bases. If you need him, if you add him, expect him to get you hits, hit for a good average, hit a couple home runs, drive in some runs. And the last guy on the waiver wire, and my personal favorite to talk about here, is Johnny DeLuca of the Rays. Johnny be good. He's been mashing since being activated off the injury list. His first game, he went 0 for 4. .4% rostered. 6.4% rostered. And he was not included on hitters to stream, but I wouldn't mind adding him and putting him in one of my my outfield spots or my utility. And DeLuca's another guy that you might thank me for later in a categories league, because he'll get you stolen bases. He'll get base percentage, home runs, walks. He has a really good plate discipline. I think Paul Skenes is actually going to get his own portion of the show. So we're going to talk about other pitchers to stream here. And The other pitcher, the two other guys I have on this list to stream this weekend. One is making his season debut, and that would be Taj Bradley Friday against the Yankees at home. Now, Taj Bradley only 7.5% rostered. Now with Bradley, I would say if you add him and start him this week, it's his first start of the season. I expect the Rays to have him on a strict innings limit for this start or pitch count limit. So don't expect him to go more than, I'm going to say, maybe 4 1/3, maybe 5 innings. I know he's stretched out, but don't expect more than 4 or 5 innings out of Bradley or 50 or 60 pitches at his first start back from the injured list. And the other guy I'm going to talk about is Brandon Pfaadt of the Diamondbacks. He starts tonight. Him and Taj Bradley both start tonight. I just talked about Bradley. Now I'm going to talk about Pfaadt. Brandon Pfaadt goes against the Orioles in Baltimore. I know that's a scary lineup, but I feel like Brandon Pfaadt could get you 5, 6 innings, maybe. Can he get 10 strikeouts? That's the one thing that worries me. I think he's going to get maybe 7 or 8 strikeouts tonight against the Orioles. Now we're going to get to, and I told you he was going to get his own little segment, and he's the thumbnail and the title of the video, Paul Skenes. If you didn't hear, the Pirates are promoting top pitching prospect Paul Skenes to the big leagues to start tomorrow on Saturday against the Cubs. And he is rostered in almost 70% of leagues already. I think he should be rostered in every single league, whether it be redraft, dynasty, categories, points, NL only, mixed leagues. He needs to be rostered everywhere. He is not going to go back down to AAA, even if he has a bad start. And I don't think he will. He was dominating in AAA. He had something like, he had a point. I want to know what y'all think. Sound off down below in the comments of this video. Tell me if you think tell me if you think this is wild. He had a .99 ERA in, I believe, under 50 innings in AAA this year. And he was striking out batters at an alarming rate. And he was available in a few of my leagues. I would go out and if he somehow is available in your league, I would add Paul Skenes right now. He needs to be 100% rostered in fantasy baseball. And he is in another segment in a minute, and we will talk about that segment in a little bit, where I will give you a payoff to Paul Skenes and what I think he's going to do in his major league debut. But there goes that. Now we get to the next part of the show, and it is guys turning the corner. And I've got 2 guys on here, and I have talked about one of them almost exclusively the last 3 shows before this one, and that is Rays outfielder Randy Arozarena. It seems like Randy may be starting to break out of his slump he was in. And I've seen him turning the corner and breaking out of that slump, and I'm all here for it. And he will be moving up my rankings for the outfield. And you can see those rankings on Patreon at Patreon/Talk Sports Show. I know it's Sports Talk Podcast is the YouTube channel, but it's completely different over on Patreon, the name. But back to the show. Just had to dig the Patreon for a second. But I do think Randy is starting to break out of that slump he was in. And you can feel confident again in putting him in your lineup when the Rays are playing, and he's obviously in the lineup. And then the other guy is Tigers outfielder Riley Green. Riley Green was another guy that I had mentioned on numerous episodes of whether it be the Fantasy Baseball Podcast or Fantasy Baseball Advice Show. And I think Riley Green's another guy that is also starting to really turn the corner. He's been mashing as of late, and I'm all here for it. If somehow somebody was not thinking and they rage dropped Riley Green, and you have a spot on your bench, or you have another outfielder that is struggling, or is a platoon situation, I would drop them in a heartbeat for Riley Green. And now we get to bold predictions for the for this weekend. I've got 3 bold predictions for you. The first one is a payoff of what I said a few minutes ago. If you want to go back and listen, Paul Skenes. I'm making a bold prediction here. I think Paul Skenes strikes out 11 Cubs at his first major league start. If you have not seen Paul Skenes highlights, I highly recommend going and watching Paul Skenes highlights. A fastball that's 100 miles an hour. He's got a splinker, which is a slider and a slurve. And he's got I think it's either a changeup or curveball. But just watch the movement and all the pitches. The hitters look fool. He makes hitters look silly with the break on all his pitches and the control and command. Like I said, I think he's going to strike out 11. And if you're looking for that game tomorrow, it will be on MLB Network. And I think the game's at 4:10. Believe me, I will have it on. And if this prediction hits, I will go back to the video today, clip it, and put it in a YouTube short. And you can call me a genius. If it doesn't work and he has a blow-up first start and, he strikes out less than 11, then I'd still feel good about it, but it would make me a little more skeptical on his long-term outlook. The next bold prediction I have is a Rays player, Johnny DeLuca. And I'm going to do some explaining with this bold prediction. I think he's going to steal 10 total bases. Kid has speed. I think he gets 3 or 4 stolen bases tonight, 2 or 3 tomorrow, and then on Mother's Day, I think he gets another 2 or 3 steals. So if he steals 4 bases tonight, that's 4. 2 or 3 on Saturday, so that would put him up to 7 if he gets 3. And then 2 or 3 more on Sunday. If he gets 3 more, that's 10. So if he steals, there's multiple ways he could get to 10 total stolen bases. And I don't think it's crazy to think that that Johnny DeLuca can get 10 total stolen bases. And the last bold prediction I have for this weekend is Max Kepler continues to rank. Yes, I know I talked about Kepler in the waiver wire. I didn't tell you that I had another payout, and it was Max Kepler. He's going to keep mashing. He will keep hitting. It's at an alarming rate. And those are my bold predictions. But September 5th through the 9th, if you also watch the college football podcast, I'm going to give a little programming note to that. September 5th through the 9th, that podcast that is run by me will be in Blacksburg, Virginia, vlogging that the entire weekend from Blacksburg, live streaming and answering college football questions that entire weekend in Blacksburg. As well, if you haven't seen the community polls, please go give them a look. And just a little update. There was supposed to be a play-by-play today. It has been moved. You will still get your play-by-play of the Padres and Dodgers game tomorrow night. Padres-Dodgers tomorrow night at 8:40, though. That will be another play-by-play with me. And if you've enjoyed the video, please remember to leave a thumbs up on it and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any future uploads. And we offer merch and memberships here. I highly recommend getting a membership with the Sports Talk Podcast YouTube channel. They start at 99 cents a month. The one I recommend getting the most is $14.99 a month, and that's for college football season, which I will give another shout out to the podcast, the CFP podcast, which I will have another episode of on Sunday night at 8 o'clock, going over my post-spring thoughts on the SEC and the Big 12, and we will have two episodes back-to-back for you, one on Sunday, one on Monday, for the CFP podcast with me, Alec Pecano, and I think that's going to wrap up today's video. Have a wonderful rest of your Friday.